Lady lads and gentle lads, the dream is over. This will be the last MechWarrior 5 AMA summary that I'll ever do. Our worst fears have been confirmed. MechWarrior 5 went Epic exclusive. I and many others have suspected that this would happen for quite some time already, and I was, to some degree, prepared for it. What I wasn't prepared for was the absolute, unapologetic temerity of Russ Bullock when he finally deigned to announce the news to us. For all his flowery words about how this was a decision taken to make the game the best it could possibly be, whatever the hell that is supposed to mean, the truth of the matter is that the man is guilty of marketing fraud by his own admission. For those who aren't yet aware, PGI is offering refunds for our pre-orders, as has been the case with many other Epic exclusives so far. And, as has been the case with other similar frauds, Russ Bullock doesn't give a good goddamn about the refunds. Though Epic may not be directly paying for the lost cash from refunded pre-orders, after all, why bother leaving a paper trail that leads back to the sinister puppeteer? The marketing funds that Bullock got from selling the soul of MechWarrior is quite clearly enough to tank the hit, and then have some left over to cover development and mass marketing costs. For the sake of reference, Russ stated that about 20,000 people invested in the community pre-order for MechWarrior 5 between January and April of 2019. So far, they've processed about 1,200 refunds, though their support team likely still has a ways to go. By the way, a link to the support team's email is in the description. It's where you go to get your refunds. Anyway, assuming that most of those 20,000 people invested in the highest tier of pre-order, which was roughly about $120, we're looking at around $2 million maximum that were invested into the development of this game, just from pre-orders alone. No doubt Russ is banking on a fair number of people to be too lazy to get the refund, and/or to be outright apologists for the man's lies, which we will touch upon in due course. It is up to us to disabuse him of his fanatical faith in statistical projections. So, I urge everyone that has pre-ordered this game to begin the refund process before the 1st of September, as any requests for refund on that day or after will no longer be accepted. Though the legality of that is also in question. As a matter of fact, there is a lot about Russ's statements that are legally suspect. Now then, to get into the meat of the issue, marketing fraud. The real crux of this issue isn't the Epic exclusivity on its own, though it does make a significant portion of everyone's complaints, for good reason. Had Russ announced from the get-go when the pre-orders went live for the first time in January that MechWarrior 5 was going to be exclusive to the Epic Game Store, none of this would have blown up into the shitstorm that it now is. Many would have swallowed the bitter pill and likely supported the game out of sheer love for the franchise, and in spite of its sellout to Epic. What we lacked was transparency. What we got instead was outright disinformation. As it turns out, Russ admitted to having been in talks with Epic since the start of the pre-order, and, by his own admission, and we do have voice recordings of this, the exclusivity deal was signed mere days before the end of the pre-order in April. What this means is that the agreement was reached well before the end of April, in order to give the lawyers time to draft up the deal, and the formalities were merely conducted at that time. Either way, for a great deal of time, the community pre-order was a total falsehood. The promise of Steam or GOG keys was a hollow one. Worse yet is the lengths to which Russ was willing to drag out this lie. In the April AMA session, one where he was personally answering the questions, linked to the summary in the top right, he made the bold-faced assertion that there were no plans for a release on the Epic Store as of that present moment. Clearly, he and I have different definitions of the words plan and present moment. And I have a suspicion that mine isn't a cover for a lie of omission. Now, wait. It gets better. The only reason why we were even brought into the loop on the secret behind the smoke and mirrors was due to the mistake of a PGI techie charged with changing the MechWarrior 5 website FAQ. Let us ignore for a moment that this was something that should have been done months ago, at least shortly after the time of the exclusivity signing, because Russ was planning on keeping us in the dark about this until mothering August, during the closed community beta test, no less. So, to do the math on this, we would have been under the impression that our Steam keys were ready and waiting for a good 3 or 4 months before finding out at the last second before product launch that we were getting cucked. Again, we have recordings of this. These are Russ's words, not mine, nor anyone else's. Russ, like some sketchy East Hastings Street coke dealer, was going to give us a little sample of his stuff in order to get us hooked, before dragging us into some seedy back alley the next time we came for our fix, where we would find out that we are now in debt to the mob, and that we start our shift on the street corner this night. So, many of you may be wondering what we can do about this whole fiasco now. Class action lawsuit comes to mind, and I think we have some fairly solid grounds for it. Although, no. We have some pretty fucking good grounds for it. Though I haven't a bloody clue as to how we should begin the process. If there is already a case being built by someone in the community, please direct me to them in the comments section, and I'll see what I or others can do to help get the ball rolling. No doubt, many in the community will now also be flying a black flag. And to them, I wish you fair winds and a happy cracking. In this regard, I follow the logic of unique name Saurus, by the way, and I will be posting a link to his video about combating exclusivity in the anime streaming industry in the description below for those who are interested in his stance, and as a result, mine, on this matter. Those among you who are more patient will likely wait until the 1 year of Epic exclusivity is at its end, at which point you will be able to get it on Steam or GOG. Though you will have to say goodbye to all the MechWarrior 5 pre-order goodies you would have gotten, because those are exclusive to the Epic release as well. Unless they were to somehow extend the deal, who knows? It's a possibility. It's likely illegal, but it's par for the course at this rate. For those of you looking for a fix of MechWarrior action now, however, I'll be leaving a link to the demo of a game called Mech Company in the description. It seems to be reminiscent of the kind of gameplay seen in MechWarriors 2 and 3, and it is going to be launching a Kickstarter at some point in the near future, though no set date has been established. Naturally, I will also be posting a link to their Discord in the description, so please, hop on over there and help those boys out. The idea of credit card chargebacks has also been tossed around. For more information, I would consult with your bank on this matter, as I have heard that it will damage your credit score if you do undertake such an action. Though chargebacks do exist as a consumer protection measure, so I don't know. Your mileage may vary. Regardless, talk to your bank before you go for this seemingly nuclear option. Lastly, in the description, I will also be posting a link to a complaint form for the Competition Bureau of Canada. As PGI is based in Canada, they are subject to the laws of this land, and we do have this measure in place to potentially combat such malicious business practices. While the purview of this bureau is not to settle financial disputes between parties, they are tasked with investigating anti-competitive business activities. The one that I believe PGI is clearly guilty of is false or misleading representations, which the Bureau defines as a situation where materially false or misleading representations are made knowingly or recklessly to the public. And I repeat, recklessly. The link to these definitions will also be in the description. Outside of these options, I don't see that there's very much we can do to hold PGI accountable for their actions. Also, in light of the attack on KyoAni earlier this month, I would like to caution anyone who is considering pulling a similar stunt against doing so. All you do is help others to misrepresent the rest of the community, and, most importantly, you are largely doing harm to those who had little to no executive control over the situation. Besides, if your interest is petty revenge, then forcing Russ to shut down his company as a result of his own mistakes and deception is far more just and worthy of pursuit. So please, take some time and chill a bit. Well, with that public service announcement out of the way, I'll end this off on a personal note. I am legitimately torn over the situation, as I want to see mech games and shows make a popular resurgence. I've been a fan of big stompy mechus ever since I first saw Gundam Wing on TV as a kid, And following on from that, I had an infatuation with the GDI Titan unit from Command and Conquer Tiberian Sun. Giant robots have been a passion of mine really ever since. That said, I came to the Battletech party quite late. I was never really exposed to the franchise much as a kid, though I did hear mention of it from time to time. Finally, it was Harebrained Schemes' take on turn-based strategy that really immersed me in the universe. There was something heart-wrenching about seeing an arm and torso getting torn off of one of your mechs by a wild AC-20 shell. There was also a certain sense of urgency in each combat scenario as a result. Granted, the illusion faded once you got into the late game and later discovered on forums that the random number generator fudges its numbers based on if you were doing too well or too poorly in combat, in order to frustrate your steamroll or to give you a glimmer of hope in a dire situation, as the case may be. So when I heard about MechWarrior 5 going in for a pre-order, and the additional incentive for MechWarrior Online content, I figured, maybe I was missing out on something this whole time. So let's give it the old college try. And for a time, it was good. I was enjoying the early stages of MechWarrior Online, having recently weaned myself off of World of Tanks, and I could tell that there was some genuinely fun gameplay to be had in MWO. Then the months passed. I ranked up in MWO some more, and came to realize that the community was right. The game was broken and unbalanced, and gameplay at the higher tiers was completely stale because everyone had figured out the optimal way to play the game long ago. NASCAR. Anyway, my interest in MWO began to fade, and a review I had made up was backburnered for so long that I'm genuinely glad I never released the final draft. My mind had changed that much. Furthermore, the red flags began to appear one by one. AMAs were becoming less and less informative, with greater oversight from Russ, likely to ensure that no one said anything they weren't supposed to be saying. The announcement that PGI was effectively ending the generation of new content for MechWarrior Online, which led to a sizable drop in an already flagging player base. The hiring of new staff to work on the UI quite late into the development cycle, something that should have been ironed out earlier in my opinion, but I'm no expert. But it really also begged the question, where is this money coming from? The lack of a Steam store page this late into the development cycle as well, and the final nail in the coffin, the removal of any mention of Steam promises in the MechWarrior 5 FAQ. Really, my heart goes out to the poor techie that gave up the ghost as regards pre-order promises in the FAQ. No doubt the poor bugger got an earful from Russ for their trouble. For that matter, my heart goes out to the entire development staff of PGI. You're going to now be forced to defend and/or suffer through a PR disaster that is likely going to spell doom for the company that you work for, and may, in the worst case, completely unravel the project that you have spent your souls to create. To Russ, I would like to extend some genuine sympathy. I know how hard it is to see a project that you've been working on for years go up in smoke. I've even fallen to similar depths of alcoholic despair and sleeplessness over it. That said, I cannot forgive the kind of deceit that was inflicted upon the very customers, nay, investors that formed the bedrock upon which your company was resting. And for what? The potential of attracting that mythical wider audience so that you could sell your 1 million fucking copies? Well, guess what? It wasn't the wider audience or mass marketing that ever got me interested in Battletech. It was a fan of the franchise that finally got me to take the plunge. If you truly want to appeal to the wider audience, you should be kissing the feet of folk like Baradul, Tex, Kanajashi, Snuggles Time, Critical Rocket, Cozened Indigo, Captain Cat, Edmund, Captain Kibbs, so many countless others who do any form of Battletech or MechWarrior content. And finally, the guy that got me to take the plunge on HBS's Battletech in the first place, Razorfist. After all the time that these folks have spent keeping the torch of the franchise burning, you take a shit in the beds that they have so carefully made, while self-righteously proclaiming that this is a good thing, and expecting them to then lie in it. You may think that the MechWarrior community are a bunch of selfish and entitled pricks, but know that it is you who nurtured them into this. The seeds of this backlash were sown by you many years ago, Russ, and the time has come for you to reap the whirlwind. With all of that said, stay strong, MechUGs. MechWarrior will rise again, though its time is seemingly not now. Salt-free uploads will resume in a couple of days. Until then, chin up and make the best you can of these sad days with your newly liberated refund bucks. And I've got a rather special video in the works to celebrate my own refund, whenever they finally finish processing the request anyway. So look forward to that. If I've missed anything or forgot to talk about anything, please let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to address it in future. Until then, I have been Smastian. I'll see you soon on a Tiberian battlefield, and I hope, from the bottom of my heart, that Russ has a fondness for striped shirts.